Hi, welcome to Morning Market Call. I'm Jeff Butler, and today with me I have Pete Boehme. Pete is a second-year MBA student at BYU. He's also a member of the Silver Fund, and he spent his summer with Partners Group and SW Asset Management. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thank you, Jeff. Good to be here.
So given your expertise in asset management, particularly hedge funds, we're going to spend a little time talking today about hedge funds. And so first, can you just give us an overview about what a hedge fund is and what its role in our economy is?
Yeah, absolutely. But first, let me qualify that. I spent 2 months over the summer at a hedge fund. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'll do my best to answer your question. But sure, yeah. A hedge fund essentially is a lightly regulated pool of investments. And it's usually open to institutions and qualified investors. So only certain wealthy individuals can invest in hedge funds. And normally most hedge funds will only take minimum amounts of $250,000, $1 million, something like that. So it's not open to everybody. That's essentially what a hedge fund is. And the first hedge fund actually was opened up in 1949 by a man named Alfred Winslow Jones.
Okay.
And so that gives you some idea about how long they've been around.
Wow.
A little while, but they're still somewhat new. And I think hedge funds play an important role in our markets. I did a little bit of research, and the best I could come up with was that the global equity markets consist of about $50 trillion, and hedge funds control about $1.5 trillion in assets under management. And keep in mind that's consists of stocks and bonds. And so that gives you some idea of their how their scope in the overall marketplace. So they're not a huge part of it, but they still play a significant role in that. I think they eliminate a lot of inefficiencies in the market. Hedge fund managers typically are very aggressive, and they search for inefficiencies in the market and capitalize on those. And so they actually, in my opinion, make markets much more efficient.
Oh, very good. So despite their philanthropic efforts of making markets more efficient, which we all enjoy, it seems like hedge funds oftentimes get a bad rap. They're viewed in a bad light. People have negative opinions of them. And obviously they face certain challenges. So maybe could you touch on some of the challenges that they face and maybe shed some light on why people have a negative opinion of them sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the largest challenges that hedge funds face right now is simply raising capital. It's the lifeblood of the industry, and given the recent relative poor performance of hedge funds over the last couple years, they've had a hard time raising capital. And hedge funds are set up by nature to not lose money, to make money in good markets and bad markets. And over the last 2 years, hedge funds have had pretty poor performance. And so investors are pulling money out of hedge funds. One article I read had an amount of estimated about $400 billion of money flowing out of hedge funds over the last 2 years. And another significant problem hedge funds are facing right now is something called hitting their high water mark. And so what that is hedge fund managers make most of their money on carry or on performance fees. And so, for example, if a hedge fund manager charges 1.5% of assets under management and then 20% performance fee, which is pretty typical in the industry, that means that if hedge funds return 10% a given year on, say, assets of $100, if they return $10, then they'll get paid $1.50 for the assets under management plus $2 from the performance. Okay. And so what a high water mark says is if a fund drops, say the next year it drops down to $90, okay, so they lose money, and then the next year they come back up to $105, but it still is not past that $110. They don't get paid. So they need to hit that $110 and outperform that to get their carry, their performance fees.
So that certainly, I think, helps put investors at ease. At least they know that, after maybe a poor year, that at least they'll might be able to earn some of that back before, the hedge fund starts taking their normal carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think so, but what are hedge funds doing right now? They're closing down because they know that they can't hit that high water mark, so they close down and open up a new fund. And Merrill Lynch just had a report that came out a few weeks ago that said they estimate 20% of all hedge funds will shut down over the next year. And a lot of that has to do with hitting this high water mark and getting these performance fees. So activities like this maybe taint the perception of hedge funds.
Right. So before we wrap up, tell us a little about your experience. You mentioned you spent just a few weeks working with a hedge fund over the summer. How did you enjoy it? What were the things you experienced there?
I really enjoyed my experience with the hedge fund. It was a very small shop, and I worked closely with 3 other individuals, and I just really enjoyed their passion and their drive to perform. And very sharp guys. So working with people who are driven, very sharp, very experienced, was quite an experience. And I'd also add that I lost my thought.
Yeah, so I mean, for me too, I think being able to work with people that are of such high caliber, use them as examples and mentors, certainly will definitely propel you and forward you in your career and your ambitions as well, I mentioned.
Yeah, I would agree. And one other thing I was going to mention is hedge funds. Most hedge funds retain a lot of autonomy, and so they're free to, go into the markets that they feel are best. And a lot of asset management firms, you can't do that.
Right.
And so that's another a great thing I like about that industry.
Awesome. Well, sounds like you had a great experience. Definitely can be an advocate for hedge funds and for the good that they do provide. Thanks so much for being on the show. We really appreciate having you. And thanks again, and tune in next time for Morning Market Call.
Morning Market Call is brought to you by the Marriott School of Management in cooperation with the Brigham Young University Department of Communications. MMC is made possible by generous donations from Larry Tasjan and Gary Williams. This show was produced by Jeff Butler, Janessa Cloward, David Wood, and Doug Mumford, with line producing by Beth Grimmett. For more information, please follow us on Twitter and Facebook.